So this particular reading lends itself perfectly for a stewardship sermon about money and giving and all of that stuff. And I am going to talk about money and giving, but it's not a stewardship sermon in the true sense of the word. I'm not going to hit you up for an extra $1.50 a week. Although if you want to give it, I won't stop you. I wanted to talk about philanthropy. When you hear the word philanthropist, what or who comes to mind? Are there particular names that you associate with philanthropy? Perhaps Bill Gates or Oprah Winfrey. Perhaps you know the names of wealthy families who have given in someone else's name to change something or grow something, like the Morecambes. Or those who give to worthy causes such as cancer research, school and university bursaries, hospital and medical research, COVID research. Maybe even celebrities or famous people who can advance their career or cause by getting their names or faces into the media to highlight their giving. Maybe not philanthropic. When I think of philanthropy, I usually think of the ultra-rich who give from their vast resources of wealth to help someone or something big that perhaps they're passionate about. And as a person who works and ministers in a world that is always looking for ways to pay for stuff and pay for ways to help others, it's probably natural to think of the ultra-rich giving. Any of us who work in or for not-for-profit organisations cannot help but be eternally grateful for the support of those wealthy few who give. I hate to think of where many churches or universities or schools or social service programs would be without generous contributions of those individuals and families. And this is not a black mark on them. We have some of those wonderful people here at St Peter's, and I am eternally grateful. Many philanthropists take the responsibility of giving back to their communities seriously. But there is a problem if we believe that it's only the very rich who can be philanthropists, that only rich people are capable of donating to a worthy cause. First and foremost, wealth is as subjective as any other asset, among other things. It's dependent on what you believe wealth is. Someone with $100 in their savings account might consider themselves destitute, and another with $20 in their pocket might consider themselves rich. It all depends on your particular perspective. In our modern world, the very wealthy, sometimes called the filthy rich, which is an interesting term in and of itself, constitute less than 1% of the population. But that 1% controls 60% of the world's wealth, which seems a little unfair. Most of us cannot hope to emulate the vast sums of money donated to various organisations out of this vast surplus. And I think of the COVID vaccine trials, where one celebrity donated $1 million, and then about 15 others got on the bandwagon and also donated $1 million. Which, excellent, $15 million for research, but, you know. Most of us can't imagine what it would be like to have $1 million, let alone give $1 million away. All this can make us believe that our gift can't or won't make any difference, or that it's sole responsibility of the wealthy to give to the less fortunate. I mean, where would we never would expect a homeless person to give something if they were to be in here today? We wouldn't expect them to give something. We might actually expect them to ask for something. Similarly, if the governor or someone celebrity came, we would expect them to give because we would use that reasoning. Our ability to give and be generous is not limited by this kind of thinking. Do you actually know what the word philanthropy means? It means loving humanity. It's got nothing to do with money, loving humanity. And true philanthropy involves risk. We all too often measure the importance of gifts and gift-givers in terms of their monetary value only, rather than in the terms of the personal risk or cost to them. This is the message Jesus is trying to get across today. He illustrates that when we only give from our surplus, we risk nothing. We do it only to align and gain something for ourselves. It's not generosity when we do it like this. There was a famous champion heavyweight boxer who in a single year earned $10 million. He walked into his church and the sermon was on tithing and stewardship. And the pastor stood up there and said, "Give 10% of your income to God for the work of God." This spoke to him and he decided to change his life and follow this principle. Immediately he began giving away $1 million out of his earnings. Within a few weeks he had given away the entire $1 million. And everyone thought he was amazing. They said things like, it's easy to give away $1 out of 10, but it's hard to give away $1 million out of 10. It's exceptional. This is held up as the model for us all. But there is a fundamental flaw in this kind of thinking. Is it truly easier for someone to give away $1 out of the only 10 they have? Or is it easier to give away $1 million when you've got 9 million more in the bank? The difference is not the amount of money given or even the percentage, it's actually the same. The difference is the personal risk involved, perhaps even the faith. The personal risk is greater for the one who only has $9 left to their name than the one who has 9 million. With 9 million, you can still live and function and have a very comfortable life. With $9, you perhaps can't feed your family. The risk of the 1 in 10 is much greater. Two of our stories today illustrate this risk. Two widows, two women, give all of themselves 100%, not 10%, 100. Ruth trusted a God she didn't really know because she trusted Naomi, who did know. Ruth trusted Naomi's judgment. She risked much. She risked everything. Go and read the whole book of Ruth. It'll only take you 20 minutes. It's a beautiful story, poignant and powerful. Ruth offers all she has, her honour, her name, her status, her very life, by laying down at the feet of a man she doesn't even really know. Only in the hope that what she is offering will be accepted or recognised as the gift that it is. Everything she has, she lays at his feet, literally. And the widow who is unnamed, who puts her money in the treasury, she is known only by her deeds. It's easy to take away her face, her humanity, because she's not named. But remember the definition of philanthropy? Loving humanity with risk. If we take her humanity away, what is left? If we reduce her to her deeds, we negate her real sacrifice. That's the point of what Jesus is trying to say. I thought we'd look at another widow from biblical history who offered much. The widow in the Elijah story. Remember the widow whom Elijah promised that if she made him a cake first of her meagre resources, he'd make sure these same resources would never fail until the drought ends. If she could just trust in God and give everything she and her son have to live on away, then blessings would abound. Enormous risk. To give the last of what you have to someone you've never met, even before your own child, in the hope of something more, in the faith of God's blessing. The unnamed woman from Elijah's story risks everything. But in a story of immense trust and human sacrifice, she gives him what he asks for. And we know the end of the story. Her meal and her oil don't fail until after the drought breaks. I wonder, though, if she then paid it forward and gave of her wealth and baked cakes for others who were starving. I suspect she did. Now imagine again the widow of the gospel story. There are many like her in our own community. Perhaps she has children, perhaps not. Perhaps she is alone in the world. Perhaps she's not actually starving, but just doing it really tough. In today's terms, she's down to about $2.40. That's 164th of a day's wage. This is roughly equivalent to what the widow gave in the gospel story today, $2.40. Not even enough to buy a cup of coffee. Certainly not enough to eat for a whole day. What would it mean for you to give $2.50 if that's all you had? For her, it's even more perilous. Perhaps she'll earn enough to eat today and perhaps she won't. But still, she looks in her purse to the $2.50. If she gives 20 or 30 cents, honestly, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference at this point. Nope, she upends the whole purse, risks it all, puts all of it in the bowl. Tithe, they say, give 10% of what you have. But what about if we change our thinking a little? What about if, like these women, we give 100%? 100% of ourselves, our philanthropic role models to the rest of the world. What would happen if we did that? It's how the pantry operates. We stepped out, we gave it all away, and prayed that it would come back in. It is disturbing to see the profoundly poor caring of their meagre resources and giving it away to each other. And I see it all the time. The poorer someone is, the more they give it away. And it is disturbing to think that these women are literally risking their lives to give, and we are not. They risk their survival. They are the true imitators of Christ. They lay down their lives for their families, for themselves. It's very disturbing. But perhaps that's what good role models and philanthropists do. Those who love humanity. Is that what Jesus is teaching you today? Rather than his story telling us to give a little for a little reward, his story disturbs us into giving it all in faith. What does that mean for you? The Lord be with you.